Hello, thank you for letting me crash this one.
Oh, you're kidding. When I saw the industry, I said, Mike, I love you, but we're gonna need to bring Siobhan a little bit because anyway, but he was happy because he knows that you rock on this industry. So I think it will be good. It's good to be in the stage with you again, as always. As
Yes, I got
we
kicked out.
in this one, to be specific, you actually kicked yourself out of the
I
conversation,
actually did.
but you did. No, but it's good to have you back, and I think we're gonna have a blast. It's always like this, and with Mike, in all honesty, he's absolutely brilliant, also from a data perspective and all the insights. So it's always really, really, really fun as well. So, but I'm excited about this one. I think if there's a world where right now, or an industry that right now is being impacted also for everything that is, from economic perspective, everything that is happening around the world is this one. And it's also more visible and very visible because of the size and the importance of all of that. So looking forward to pick your brain a little bit as we go, and bring the insights of how can we ultimately continue to tackle this evolution of this industry as well. So um, everybody, I think we have almost everybody also in the webinar. Why don't we start? Are you good to start? Are we okay to start,
Yeah, I
Siobhan?
think we're good to go. I
Yeah,
think just a little bit of context as well. Like my background and expertise pre to Rejig was construction. So
I
um
know.
the reason I wanted to be part
Massive
of this
construction.
one, yeah, massive multi-billion dollar constructions all over the world. So this one is very I'm very passionate about this one, but also see this as a great opportunity for the industry to reinvent themselves. So very excited, and thank you, Nuno, for letting me jump in.
No, we're gonna probe on that one as well, Siobhan. So, but welcoming also everybody to the Skills Masterclass. There's a lot of people that continue to come because ultimately there's the insights that we provide to different industries that can help many organizations to understand work and how to unbundle work, and one industry at a time. That's what we do and what we're doing today. Today, as you know, we've been focusing on this construction industry. It's a sector that is evolving very rapidly, with advancements in automation, in robotics as well, in industry. It was a sector that was very disrupted before, with everything that was kind of industrial transformation, and even more right now. So you'll see some of that concerns and directions coming from senior leaders and CEOs on the industry, and how this is shaping their ultimately workforce transformation as well. Siobhan, you've been in the industry for many years, and ultimately there's no one else better placed to see the workforce evolutions of an industry that continues to have to reinvent itself with all the pressures that we see from an economic perspective. So it will be an absolute pleasure to have you here. So my name is Nuno Goncalves. I'm heading up workforce strategy at Reejig. Siobhan, everybody knows Siobhan. Siobhan is our CEO and co-founder. She has been a leader of this whole movement of the AI impact on the workforce, and because of her previous background, a perfect match to everything that we're doing today. So to give you a bit of frame, we will start with giving you a little bit of an industry outlook, and some insights of where the industry is today and where we think and we're seeing the industry going. We'll talk a little bit about what we do and from a work ontology and how do we bring the visibility to what work happens in the industry and how this work can eventually evolve. That's the work ontology that you probably already know. And then how is this being impacted by AI, by robotics, and what needs to be changed from a work perspective, and what is the impact on the skills that you will need moving forward if you are in the construction industry? How are we going to invest in reskilling and upskilling your workforce moving forward? Again, and what I love about Reejig is that not only we give you some of those highlights and insights from a data perspective, but also we start giving you perspective of what do you need to do? What is the action that you need to take so that you actually go to a future that we are all trying to build as well. So that's the plan: industry outlook, work ontology, AI, reskilling, and action, so that at the end of these 55 minutes, you get out of here with somehow of
Let's
an
go.
action plan moving forward. It's a
Excited.
$15.2 trillion industry. We don't even know what we're the amount of money that we're talking about. So it's growing exponentially. We're talking about the accounting for 13% of global GDP. It's a significant and very big industry, maybe one of the biggest industries that we have on our ontologies, not Siobhan?
That and retail. Retail is also in
That and
hospitality.
retail.
Hospitality. Yeah.
So in the US, it's interesting because right now, from a tariffs perspective, I'm assuming that will we be seeing kind of a reduction of work because, again, work will be more expensive, or do you think it will actually grow even more? Meaning, with all the pressures that we're having from a tariffs perspective, will we spend more? Meaning 15.2 might be just the baseline, or do you think we'll have to prioritize all the construction projects and actually be able to do less because ultimately it's more expensive? What's your take there?
I think from a industry perspective, it's not like a needing more workers. It's we need smarter ways to build because you're going to have these issues around costs. So whether it was COVID, whether it was tariffs, whether it's these cycles of ups and downs, I think there's going to have to be a smarter way for us to do the building and the construction in a way that is resilient to all things, because the tariffs is only just one thing, right? Like it's just, and no one knows like what the outcome of that will be, but there'll be another thing, and this just continues, and the margins are so low in construction that like every dollar, and from my experience, even watching how the contractors bid for work, is that the margins are getting lower and lower and lower. So there's this cost pressure that you will see on a major project that you probably won't see in other environments because every penny really does matter. So I think like, yes, there's tariffs and yes, there is big cost pressures, but I think overall the sector itself, there's going to have to be a different way to think about being a margin machine. Like, and that's where it's going to become like a different conversation. And this is why, like, I think this one's a really important one.
So I guess it's at the perfect place also for Reejig, meaning, if you have all the pressures that from a cost perspective, so how do you re-engineer the way that you do work so that you supercharge your workers, whether it's from robotics and automation and so on, and then do more, faster, better with less, so that you can have better margins and be able to actually deliver on what you need to deliver. So I think it's a great point as well. When we're starting to see some of the leaders in the industry, I think some of the same problems that we have or some of the same statements and some of the same concerns that we have in all the other industries as well. So on one side, we know that this is probably one of the industries that are more kind of focused on kind of robotics and automation as well. But on the other side, we talk about the price that you're talking about, the price pressure that they have everywhere, whether it's kind of government construction or kind of private construction as well. A focus on skills, the need of skills in some specific kind of crafts that are in the construction, and somehow the labor shortages, especially in some of the more remote places that we're building and that we're constructing as well. So I think it doesn't change much from many other industries, but it actually gets amplified, I think, in some cases in the construction, because there's so much pressure and there's so much expertise and skills that ultimately it's hard to find them where you need it, the amount of time that you need it, and with the skills that you need as well. They also talk about these supply chain disruptions, which is very interesting. The other in a previous industry conversation that we're having, the automotive conversation, I then realized something that is very interesting is that once you start manufacturing, some pieces of what you manufacture will have to go through different countries. So if it comes from Asia to Canada and Canada to US, then there's a disruption and a cost increase every time that it lands on one country as well. So very, very disruptive, very complex, and with pressures all over, but still the focus is cost, or the concerns are cost, our skills, our labor shortage, and so on and so forth. Do you see big differences than when you were doing some of these big construction projects in the past and today, Siobhan?
The major things that we had seen was what they costed at bid stage versus what ended up happening by the time you actually win the bid. There could be like a 12+ month, 18+ months. So the pricing of a deal reflective of the economy and what happens, that's the scary part. So you've got like that as a cost pressure. And then as the Lend-Lease CEO and others are saying, energy costs, high labor costs, because there is shortages in crafts, therefore they can bump their rates up a lot higher. So you've got like unstabilized rate calculations where you don't understand that. And then you have like all these project overruns, especially when you're working on major projects. There's unforeseen circumstances that typically you just can't plan for. And like any overrun of a project eats right into the margin, because like if
Right.
you've scoped programs, and then also because everyone's desperate to bid on the work, they're pricing so low to win the work. So there was all these things that I was seeing that was happening in my previous career, which was like directly linked to the pressure that I was constantly feeling about like cost, productivity. I mean, even my brother, like this is so random, but like my brother was building a house, right? And from what he started pricing it to, actually the house nearly doubled in cost for him to build what it was in a space of 12 months, because timber and basic essentials that, to build actually escalated in price. And like, imagine that at scale happening in major programs of work. That's incredibly stressful. And that money's got to come from somewhere, Nuno, like that's the cost pressure as well.
And that's the beauty of what Reejig does as well. I think there's, we've talked about the ability to actually be able to re-engineer your work and be very bold on the way that you do work. To your point, in the construction, it's probably in all the industries that have more pressure, it's where you will ultimately need to be bolder as in the way that you will transform your work with AI and robotics. But what I love about Reejig is that ultimately we also talk about this responsibility dimension as well. So how do you bring, how do you transform yourself, but also bring the people with you, so that you can supercharge your employees to actually be able to do the work that you'll need them to do in the future as well. This zero wasted potential, and I always remember that you saying it's not a tagline, it's a movement, right? We want to make sure that it's a force. We want to make sure that, because we believe a lot on the potential of people that exist in different companies, that ultimately we give them the visibility of what's changing, and ultimately where do we need to upskill and reskill as well. So it does need a new workforce strategy, even more now with all the pressures that you were talking about, with this balance of transforming, being very bold, but also being very responsible, to your point as well.
The one like the industry that we're in with construction, like there is like if these companies don't completely reinvent themselves, they're not going to be around for long, right? Yeah. Like this is where I was talking about this on a podcast yesterday with one of the leaders at Micron, and we were talking about like saying this out loud. Sometimes people scoff a little bit and they're like, oh, I can't believe she said like bold reinvention, and like that's terrible. Like ultimately, if you do not reinvent, you will be left behind. That's a real thing. And these companies in construction you're seeing the cycles of this happening right now. They got to completely change who they are, and now is the moment. But to your point, how do we enable them to do that in a way where, any of the listeners here, your CEO really does need you to be bold, but let's look at bold and responsible, and the construction industry is massively going to be one of those organizations that's going to actually need to do that.
And can I add another dimension though? It's time, because it's, I think it's you need to be very bold, and you need to be very bold also fast, no? Meaning, because if you're facing so much pressure right now, and the pressure is happening right now, and if you're not ready to face that pressure, you need to reinvent yourself very, very fast. Do you think do you feel the same, Siobhan?
100%.
That it's
like, reinvent it, or someone's going to reinvent it for you.
Yes.
Like, right? Like if you don't, you're going to have your shareholders doing it for you, or you're going to be delisted, or you're going to be aggressively acquired, or many, many things. So we're already late. Like we're already 100%. Late. We're already late.
But what we also say though is that, even if you're late, there are some steps that you need to take, right? And the reality is that you do need a kind of an upskilled workforce with new ways of working. That's the outcome. That's your objective at the end. But ultimately, first, you need to understand, okay, what is this of reinventing your workforce? How are you going to do this faster, better? How are you going to be more efficient and faster and reduce duplication and be able to accelerate everything that you do. And that's the reinvention piece that I think I love, and I think you need to step back and actually be very bold, as we were talking about. Now, once you understand the work that you do today, the work that you do tomorrow, and then you understand what are the big shifts, then you need to move this, and understand what is the impact of these changes of work to the workers, to the people, right? That will be a delta. The work before, the work in the future, the skills today, the skills of the future. So if you then start understanding and correlating work and skills, then you understand what the gaps are, which means that yes, you'll do this better and more efficient, and you will most likely have to use some of those efficiencies to invest in retraining and reskilling your workforce so that ultimately they are able to do work as you imagine the work will ultimately be in the future. Those are steps and stages that ultimately you need to go to, and then you need to go through. The faster you actually do that, the stronger you do that, the better equipped you'll be in the future as well. And you'll show you a little bit of what this is. Siobhan, I think this is where you brought, I think, a light bulb to the industry a couple of years ago, where people were very focused on skills, right? On the right side of the slide that we had before, it's like, how do we build the skills of the future? And you said, listen, you probably need to step back and you need to talk about the work first, right? The insight that ultimately the jobs have tasks, and that AI will impact and automate, and robotics will impact and automate the tasks. So that's the reinvention piece. And that ultimately the correlation between tasks and skills that will allow you then to understand, okay, if I change the task, here's the skills that we need, and ultimately what will be the impact on people. Listen, I've been in the industry for 25 years-ish, and ultimately we were focused on skills. And I think it was just brilliant that ultimately we say, listen, for us to get there, we need to do some pre-work before, and the work is on the tasks and the subtasks and understanding how we're going to transform this. And this is the focus of our ontologies, and what Reejig does is to give you mapping you the work that you do today across your organizations, understanding what are the opportunities for efficiency, what are the opportunities for automation, what are the opportunities to acceleration as well. And once you do that, then how do you rejig? How do you re-engineer your work and the impact on tasks and on skills as well? But Siobhan, you are kind of the creator of all this. Any other flavors of this that you wanna bring to the people that are with us today?
I mean, only that I spent $40 million building the wrong thing before I got to it. So, so like, it's not like we all were wrong. We were all wrong with what we knew. But now it's a different world, and technology makes things possible. But yeah, the task is like the Jenga blocks, it's that whole, especially in this new world of work. So this toolkit is going to be really, really important when we think about how to move forward in that kind of new workforce strategy.
Yeah. So giving you and everybody that is joining for the first time. So when we talk about a work ontology, and many people talk about ontologies and taxonomies differently, and I don't think there's anyone that ultimately says, that has a perspective of what this is. For us, an ontology is an aggregated set of data that ultimately allows you to correlate different parts of this data. On one side, once we talk about a work ontology, we are able to triangulate three things, which is the jobs that are done in every single one of these industries, in this case in construction. What are all the tasks that ultimately exist on those jobs, and ultimately what are the skills that are required to do those tasks as well. And an insight that was really important for me in the beginning of my own journey of kind of thinking differently was the fact that ultimately the correlation between tasks and skills is not a one-to-one correlation, Siobhan, right? And you know this better than I do, is that for you to actually be able to do a task, you're going to need at least 3 to 5 different skills. So having a place, an ontology that actually is able to correlate, to connect what are the tasks that will require some skills, or what are the skills that are required for one of these tasks on the umbrella of a job, is extremely impactful and important as well. So as an ontology, you'll start seeing the details of work, the Jenga pieces that Siobhan was talking about, and then the skills that are needed to actually be able to do those Jenga pieces as well. And if you go to the next slide, what that will allow you to do is that if you think this job by job or team by team, department by department, subfamily by subfamily, you'll start understanding what are the potential, because if you see all the different tasks, you'll see the tasks being done maybe in 5 or 6 different places as well. So why is this happening? Can you reduce the duplication one way or the other? Is your workforce bloated, meaning being with people doing the same thing and ultimately not needing to do the same thing over and over again? Because we also work and understand, to your point, we map work, we can go to the level of, I call it the unit of work, the task and the subtask, right? We can go to that unit and then understand, okay, if we're talking about a production task that is a repetitive production task, what is the potential and the exposure to automation? What is the opportunity also for automation? So Reejig will bring you on this ontology different insights that you can see also on the screen. On one side, we will bring you the AI potential index, how much exposed you'll be in every single one of your tasks and roles as well, the workforce bloat and task duplication. We will also give you what are the skills that ultimately you'll need moving forward. And then it's very important as well is that no single organization is able to transform everything at the same time. We know that there's some transformations take more time than others. We also give you that perspective of when will you be able to start reaping the benefits of this transformation and sometimes of this digitization and automation as well. So you'll see all that information on our ontology, and that will allow you to ultimately be able to evolve your organization. If we then start understanding and double clicking on the construction workforce, we see that there's 46, almost half of the workforce composition is around construction trade workers. So that's not necessarily a surprise there. You have, of course, the management and admin personnel that ultimately allows you, from a PMO perspective, from a supply chain perspective, that allows the organization and the coordination of all this construction. But the biggest part and portion is construction trade workers in different parts of their own different crafts as well. Has this evolved since in the past decade from your perspective, Siobhan? Meaning, do we have more management people than construction workers? Because I'm assuming it's getting also more professionalized than before. Is this shifting? Do you see it shifting as well?
I think it's interesting because I'm trying to figure out what's in the 25% of others. Like I'm looking at the data and wondering what clusters in there. This feels kind of pretty typical compared to what I've seen. Depends on the scale of project size as well. Like depends on how much management's required. Because if it's like a PMO of major development, or if it's like a smaller, mixed development, depends. Like it would depend on like whatever scale. But no, this feels about right. And I think from a shift perspective, there is just so much opportunity in this space to do things in a different way, and one of the things that I was looking at when I was prepping for this is it's not just about cost, it's about safety. So the construction industry has really focused on safety because of ultimately deaths that'll happen if they're not safe. And there's not just a cost optimization opportunity, but it's also like safety. Like why send someone up to do a survey that a drone could do? Like there's like really simple things like that AI is not just here for optimization, it's actually for doing right by your workforce. So I think it'll be really interesting to go through the data around like where we're focusing at as well, Nuno, in terms of where you see the most impact.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I think it's when we think about AI and automation potential in construction, we believe that there's 3 high impact roles that stand out from the data that we've seen. On one side, these heavy equipment operators, they are enhancing efficiency with AI powered machinery, improving precision and reducing downtime on job sites, which is something that is also very important. But again, we're talking about AI powered machinery that should ultimately drive to more safety as well. We are seeing these construction laborers, right, that are leveraging also automation tools to boost productivity while maintaining the hands-on kind of expertise essential to the industry as well. And this And last but not least, to your point, and you were just mentioning this kind of surveying and site analysis that are using AI-driven modeling and drone technology to accelerate site assessments and optimize kind of project planning as well, right? Which is incredibly important, for kind of the entire journey of a construction, from the beginning till the end as well. So these roles are at the heart of construction's transformation. To your point, driving safer, right? It's number one, and I love that. Faster and more intelligent workflows in an evolving industry as well. So that's where we're going to focus also today as well.
Yeah.
Siobhan.
Do you know what was really funny? When I first started my career, I thought it was mind-blowing, like mind-blowing, that I was working in an engineering company and railways and was a big part of our business. And it was mind-blowing that there was a drone now doing what a human used to do, which was like checking the lines. If like a tree falls, or like, you
Yeah.
imagine back before that someone literally would have had to have went out and checked all the lines from a safety precaution perspective to make sure that, if a train goes over a tree, like that's going to take the whole train off, right?
Yeah.
It was mind-blowing to me that like back then that there was this ability for like that was early in my career. And I remember just thinking, wow, like that's
Yeah.
fascinating. And that was like my first little hit, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
towards robotics, and like thinking about like, hold on a second, that makes so much sense to do it. So I think like there is already so many examples of in construction where they are optimizing. Like you see these the efficiency. You remember when efficiency came in as such a big thing in the market, where your green star rating buildings, these are all AI powered. They know when to switch on lights because AI detection. They know when your plumbing's about to go because it can see the pre-signs before the whole thing goes down. There's already some incredible examples of the use of AI and technology, but I think we're about to move into a new era where we typically haven't touched these traditional roles. And I think like, especially around these ones that you're talking through now, I'm really interested to see like timelines and all of that as well, Nuno.
Yeah, no, let's listen, let's double click on this one, and I'll turn it over to you on kind of more details of the data, and specifically for these three dimensions that we were talking about, these kind of heavy equipment operations, this construction labor and surveying and site analysis. There's a bunch of data that we were able to see from kind of where we can focus and what is the opportunity for every single one of them. Do you want to talk about it, Siobhan?
I mean, I think if you can run through the numbers, and I'll give you like from my perspective of like actually, it's like the thing that's going to be really interesting is this data, and then how would I use this if I was back in my previous career? Like I think that's the thing, and like more just like let us walking through this together in terms of like the efficiency. So if I can look at this less as a rejig, are you cool for me just to talk this through if you'd given me this as a workforce
100%.
strategist? I mean, here's the thing. You're going to be in a situation where your CEO is under incredible amount of cost, right? And there is this, crazy amount of pressure that's happening. If you're sitting down, you're looking at these operational rules, and you can see that 55% of this rule could be improved through autonomous machinery. Like there is an actual 55% based on the maturity of technology today. We would see that having an impact of 20 to 30% increase in your margins. Now, we're all about building margin machines right now. That's what your CEO needs to do, is improve the margins. So that ability to create that ROI and really look at that impact, this is where we're looking at a big consumption of cost reduction, not only in terms of the fuel efficiency, but also just in the worker profile as well. From a workforce demand perspective, we're seeing traditional roles, decrease, but there's an increase in the AI supervision. So the whole story, Nuno, when you take out tasks and you change roles, you build in new tasks and roles that you've never had before, because now suddenly you've got to have a manager who's operating AI machinery, which is like a completely different thing. So we're looking at that deep impact of the workforce itself. And what do we think? And, the data suggests that in what we can see, there would be sort of a 15 to 20% reduction in the traditional operational roles, but you'll still need to think about that net new task and where will there be different requirements to, with this new worker. And, no one is going to automate their workforce overnight. no one is going to do this overnight. Everyone is going to look at this in terms of like, when will I start to see the full value? Because you don't want to be going to your CEO and promising that this is going to, do all of these magical things within, a couple of weeks. You've got to put some timeline around it. And what does that look like? We're seeing here a 12 to 24 months ROI sort of timed implementation. And that's training the team, that's buying technology, that is ramping this whole thing up. So we're really focused on like that, actually seeing the full integration into a major construction organization. And this will change the skill profile, Nuno, of what the workforce will need. We're going to see new skills like AI, robotic systems monitoring, predictive maintenance, and fleet operations. So that predictive maintenance that I spoke to you about early in my career, which was these green buildings, which are predicting maintenance before it even breaks so that you don't have any downtime and it doesn't cost you the fixing, right? These are all things that, like, when we were looking at those green energy buildings, those skills didn't really exist. So we're starting to see now a big push from the industry to start upskilling and reskilling folks and pivoting them in these things. And when we start to look at these kind of heavy equipment machinery roles, that's a big shift in terms of like looking at how we're moving that workforce. But here, that's a really great opportunity for us to look at it when you're thinking about the construction laborer. Like this would be the one that is probably one of the most sort of hands-on, sort of like hand labor roles, where it's like literally, on a construction site itself. What do you sort of feel when you're seeing this data around the laborers?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. And one, I was fascinated, and I know you're already on this slide, but I was fascinated on the previous one where we're talking about, because most of the conversations that we talk about efficiencies, which means kind of cost reduction. We also need to talk about also the time, the investment that you need, right? Because when we're talking about kind of automating and having machines that are more kind of more autonomous and so on, there's an investment that you'll have to do. So there's a plus and a minus. So here we talk about the reduction of cost, but we also need to talk about the investment that you'll need. It's not only the investment that you will need on the upskilling and reskilling the people and finding the right skills, but also to be able to invest on the machinery, to invest on creating the environment where people will be able to do work differently as well. It's what you see also here, right? So if we say robotics can increase task execution speed by 50%, okay, but if we don't have those robots, what are we going to do? So you will need to be able to. It will have to be a kind of a plus and a minus, some game and a subtraction game as well. But again, a huge opportunity from an operational efficiency, huge opportunity from a reduction of cost and reduction of labor needs that you will have. It's creating a significant skills gap that you need to use and ultimately reduce one way or the other. But you also need to change and be very bold on the way that you are investing on how you're transforming your work. So if you're thinking that, oh, listen, this means that I'm just going to let go 20 to 30% of my workforce and therefore gain the margins or better margins, of course, because you have lower costs. It's not the case. This transformation will require an investment that, yes, will allow you to do more, faster, better, safer, with less cost. But there's a period where you need to invest to be able to get there as well. And this is not different either. Now, we're talking about construction labor, and here, Siobhan, I'm seeing, and I would put here kind of people that are very specialized jobs, right? It's jobs that in some cases there's only few people in the world that are able to do this at scale that some companies do as well. So that scarcity is an important one for me.
Yeah, the robotics, what I'm seeing in the construction labor side. So think of like bricklayers and skill sets like that. Right now, AI-powered robotics and automation are increasing task execution speed by up to 50% because you've got repetitive tasks like bricklaying and concrete pouring now being fully automated. And when you think about the major amount of construction labor that requires physically building, you can see a high level of labor cost associated with that type of role. And if we're now, and you see a lot of the European robotics that are doing the bricklaying, and it's quite hypnotic to watch. all of the bricklaying robotics. I have actually spent quite some time like watching, because the precision and just the way it's being done is incredible. And even like the BIM and the kind of pre-modeled pre-concrete cast that are already pre-made, so they're just bolting these things
Yeah.
together instead of traditional. Like, this was the stuff I was seeing in my previous career, which again was mind-blowing to me because it felt so futuristic. But that's going to
Yeah.
become pretty given the cost efficiency and pressure. So you're seeing the shift in driving 15 to 25% reductions in labor costs, which is accelerating your completion time of project as well. So remember that cost overrun I was talking about? That
Mhm.
kills projects, that kills businesses. Bidding on work, getting the cost wrong, going over time, you make no money. You basically have spent 2 years building something and make nothing. That kills you. So you'll see a lot more acceleration in improving overall margins and improving time completion, and also due to skill shortages that people are resorting to this as well because there's such in-demand labor, right? And the
Yeah.
workforce demanding is evolving. So with automation reducing manual labor needs by 20 to 30% over the next 5 years, we're shifting our focus to more AI assisted operations. And I think one of the things that I have seen in probably the last 18 months, and it could be the margin pressure and the cost pressure, this is accelerating faster than I thought. Like we had a
Mhm.
period where this was kind of like really cool and robotic and scientific when I started my career. And now it's becoming a norm. Now we're starting to see this
Wow.
ramp up, and AI driven construction technologies are typically integrated, 18 to 36, months, depending on the scale of what we're talking about. So the investment of this is absolutely an upfront investment, but the overall view of how to deliver a cost effective project is now going to be a lot better, in terms of 15 to 25% costs in reduction of actual project labor. So
Yeah.
that's where we kind of see like that happening. And again, back to that, Nuno, and would love to know your thoughts. Again, it comes back to this very different skill set. What would have been a traditional like laying bricks and looking at different laboring types is looking for a different skill set.
Yeah, and I think in some cases, and we somehow use the same word, but that means two different things. Upskilling and reskilling means two different things. And in some cases, that means that you have to, it's people that are in one same profession, and it's about to change and somehow incrementally. So it's like an upskilling, right? But in some cases, and I would imagine that would be the case here, especially when we're talking about drones and we're talking about kind of this, and on your next slide, you'll have the surveying piece as well. You will probably have to reskill people and say, listen, people that have done something that is around kind of technology based, that might not be necessarily focused on construction, might have better skills or might have more adjacent skills than people that have been in construction but doing something else, kind of more labor work as well. So how do you then step back and not only understand the work and not only say, okay, yeah, we need people only in construction, but actually get out of the boundaries of your own industry and think that these might be completely net new skills that you will have to bring to your industry that don't exist one way or the other. I could see these folks that are doing these surveys and site analysis coming from all different industries, as long as they have the skills that are somehow adjacent, and then you're able to upskill them or reskill them in this case to a whole new job. How exciting that is from a personal perspective, but how much insight and I've been a learning and development kind of leader for many years, but how much insight you need to actually have to say, listen, we probably need to think out of the box, and not only in our industry, and go grab someone in the tech industry or go grab someone in the device industry, right? Because devices in pharmaceuticals are also very advanced as well from a sensing perspective, diagnostic perspective. Can you use that from not only in humans, but also kind of in buildings and in land and in construction sites and so on?
Yeah.
I think that could be very fascinating to be able to do not only this upskilling, but the reskilling from people that you would never imagine would be able to work on the construction industry as well.
Yeah. And I think the point I was making to you at the start about the surveying and the site analysis, like just the ability for AI powered drones now can increase the efficiency of up to 60%, which creates an overall margin impact, of like 10 to 20% overall savings. Like it's incredible, and also has this massive impact on workplace safety. You know,
Mm.
like the recurring impact that you get from this in a very short space of time, between 6 to 12 months, is just incredible. So I think you'll see a lot of movement towards this, which, you know, you see a lot of news where it's like a lot of gamers are being brought in to
Yeah.
drive like the big construction trucks, because they're in the drones, because the Game Boy and the gamers are actually really designed really good skills for exactly doing that. And I think this is where you're going to see AI driven piloting. You're going to see like all different now types of surveying. So I think this one is going to be a really interesting one. And look at the example of like the gamer. Like I love that. Like, you know, I remember BHP in Australia, one of the biggest mining companies in the world, and they have those massive automated trucks, and they brought it in for safety reasons. Down in the mines, and they were hiring for gamers, and I thought that was
Wow.
like, when a guy was like, "Wow, that's the way that they're thinking about the transition of skill here, and the skill adjacency was actually really cool." And they did this really cool
Yeah.
campaign. I'm almost sure it was BHP, but it was whoever owned it. Like, it was great. But I think as well, like, you know, the AI potential index metrics of all of these roles, and the AI potential metrics, just for folks, is about the potential for AI to improve not just the efficiency, but reduce cost and enhance performance. And it's also adjusted based on like, where is the actual maturity of the technology today, so that we can give you a pretty decent estimate of like, what is the opportunity. And then the operational efficiency, you know, is considering the increase of input and the change of cost base. So like, are we going to see a better value delivery here because you make these decisions? And these three kind of critical rules we're talking about have really good opportunity based on cost, pain, and opportunity, not just all down to cost, but really high opportunity here for prioritization. And if you're in your workforce strategy role, or your HR role, or AI, or in any workforce optimization, really thinking about prioritizing these level of roles for AI investment to make sure that you're bringing them on your journey as well. So I'm excited to hear what you're going to tell us about becoming the skill building powerhouse connected to the construction, given your expertise in this space.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what we're seeing, I think we're already probing it a little bit on these changes, right? Is that how do you go from a kind of a more traditional construction job to an augmented AI, robotics augmented job? It's a significant shift, and one of my concerns is that will we actually have people that will be able to actually make that shift or not? Because again, I think it's very, very significant as well. We've selected these three. You know, this construction estimator, right? Which probably are those that are kind of very scared, because if you estimated somewhere around, you know, last year to kind of a 2-3 years project, and you're not counting to the inflation, what does this mean one way or the other, to actually be a job that is actually very much supercharged by AI, and you know, and from a project management and coordination perspective as well. We've been talking about this kind of CAD technician, which is very special. It's been a job that has been very, very kind of a craft job. It requires a significant and not kind of widely available set of skills to becoming a BIM specialist. We'll talk a little bit about it as well moving forward, and we'll talk about this surveying technician and this kind of AI GIS drone operations as well. And for those that are joining, you know, that don't know what GIS means, it's Geographic Information System. So how are you able to understand what that is, and not being only kind of a surveying technician on the ground, but actually being a surveying technician on the drone, and reading data and understanding data, and so on and so forth. So significant shifts, as you will see in the next
And that
pages.
BIM change, that transition from CAD to BIM has been happening for, like, when I was early in my career with WSP, that was like one of the most critical shortages of skills that we could see in our rules at the time, which is really interesting. Because it still proves to cause the same shortage requirement, that we haven't filled that skill gap. It's still there. So it's really interesting, like looking at like where that goes to next with AI as well.
Yeah. So what you see here is one, the shift that we're talking about, you know, from to, and just kind of helping everybody navigate on the slide here. as a construction estimator, what are the skills that you need? Kind of, more traditional cost estimation and budgeting. But actually, if we want to be more of a project commercial manager, that the shift is, for me, is a significant one, but still very much attainable within the kind of, in an upskilling direction, where you will need to learn kind of more project management and kind of data analytics, right? Because this is an assumption that we sometimes make, is that people that are actually kind of focused on numbers, on cost estimation and budgeting, might be good also in data analytics. It's an inference, but it's a big shift as well. It's not only about kind of estimations of cost, but also the data analytics of an entire project moving forward. A significant shift. We're talking about the 3 to 6 months of training, so it's a significant evolution. Because it's not to be underestimated, because if you've been doing this, more traditional way for 15, 20 years, learning something new sometimes is not necessarily the easiest piece. When we're talking about the reskilling ROI, we believe there's a significant ROI that you will that you'll have from this evolution. Of course, you're reskilling and upskilling one way, in this case, someone to a job that is probably more expensive, but that will mean that you'll have to gain some of your efficiencies of this transition to be able to somehow finance the higher cost that you'll have. On the other side, and we talked about this with Mike, is that you're almost creating a new job, right, Siobhan? And that means that, yes, it's almost like it's a motivation for someone to be able to actually do the transition, is that you're going to go from a construction estimator to a project commercial manager. Yes, there's training, there's everything evolves, and you will have a higher salary also moving forward. So how cool is that to be able to
it's like a pivot
there?
Yeah, it's like it's the pivot. I'm obsessed with the pivot, because the pivot is like destigmatizes like things in high growth technology pivot all the time, and it's like seen as cool and edgy, right? It's like why can't we do that with career? Like, why, like, you know what I mean? So I think that whole, like, every redundancy is an opportunity for a pivot is really important, and the adjacency here and the timeline to value and the reskilling ROI I think is really impressive as well.
Yeah, I think the last thing that I would say as well is that if we have people that are kind of listening to us that have been learning and development folks, we all know that we're talking about learning and development. It's a multi-trillion-dollar kind of industry as well. It's not about necessarily the cost, is actually you having the understanding of where do you need to invest. So if we shift those trillions of dollars to the right things, this is what we're saying here, and we are able to finance and ultimately not only upskill, but give a better standard of life to these folks. Imagine the power that we're bringing to them and to the rest of the population as well. So we also start talking about there's tons of data, there's tons of programs and trainings that will allow you to upskill there. You see some examples over there on the BIM fundamental for engineers, advanced BIM applications, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff over there. This is just kind of a first glance of what you could eventually do. But I do love this kind of the modeling, this building information modeling, the BIM piece of this part of the job. It might be here as well, where we can bring people from other industries as well.
Yeah,
Siobhan.
I agree. What have we got? We've got the surveying technician. Oh yes, I like this one. I'm into the drones at the moment. I think they're just the skill adjacency, like that gamer example. I thought that was such a smart, whoever was in that learning team that thought about that, like that was smart. Like that was super clever.
Yeah. And yeah, it goes back, and we typically bring here the biggest opportunities that we see. These are significant shifts, but shifts that are attainable, shifts that will give you the efficiencies and will give you the right skills of the future. But shifts that you'll have to invest on, right, from one way or the other as well. What else do you have?
I think the key focus in what the data that it's telling us is that, this bold reinvention is incredibly important. Like this industry more than ever needs to, and are already late to the party on this one, And there is so much opportunity for them to think about this in a different way. And, you know, the whole point of these master classes is not to sit with the whole ontology. It's to give you some form of like understanding and education so that you understand the opportunity that exists and get you started. Like you gotta get moving, right? You gotta start. And it's just getting you with that momentum to go forward. And I think that's where it's going to be really focused on looking at that bold reinvention. And then on construction projects, as you know, we were just on a call just before, and it's like all about mobilization. It's all about moving, because once you complete a project, you pack up your toolbox and you go and you build another one, you know, like, and it's this constant like cycle of that. So it's really focused around that. And then I think that, you know, the final component of this whole scenario would be then the reskilling. So in a scenario where you are going to be bringing in AI adoption, changing, re-engineering, that you're looking at that pivot. What is the opportunity for you to pivot? But also, what skills can you bring to the business that you can give to your workforce? Like that example of, imagine being a gamer and then driving the biggest trucks, because, you know, in the minds, like this is the opportunity and the culture of opportunity that should exist within your organization, and to think like that. You know, there's a question in the chat there. How do you assess the retention impact and the ROI in the career pathway? I've got an answer, but I'm wondering, do you want to have a crack at that?
I'll start with one piece. I think a lot of the retention impact that we assess is related to what's in it for the person itself, right? Because retaining someone is very personal. And one, there's on our modeling, of course, there's this proactivity of being able to bring a transparency of the evolution, which in and of itself is something that we are seeing that actually impacts the retention of someone. So imagine yourself saying, listen, being in a conversation and saying, listen, you've been a construction estimator. Here's what we're going to do. We need to actually evolve to become a project commercial manager moving forward. We understand what are your skills. We understand what are the skills that you need to have in the future. We will be with you to be able to, one way or the other, be able to upskill you or reskill in this case to have a new job moving forward. A lot of these transitions will come also with salary increase and better standards of life. So a lot of what we estimate from a retention perspective is also related to these shifts and what's in it for the person itself. Now, it's a model, and in any single model, it's not to give you, you know, a specific number, but to give you a direction and order of magnitude of retention impact here as well. So that's the way that I would somehow start to answer to these questions, Siobhan. I'm interested on your perspectives as well.
Yeah, like that's the predictive model of what we would expect to see. And then there's the reality of what we've seen then once we move from bold into responsible. And we're looking at, you know, massive organizations remobilizing their work. You get a massive increase of employee engagement because those folks feel like you've seen and heard them, that you are actually navigating them. In a world now as well, and this is not just the construction industry, I think the whole industry, where our employees are genuinely quite afraid. Psychological safety at work is actually getting hit a little bit because folks worried about AI, worried about recession, worried about politics, worried about all these things and job safety. And the idea, Sophie, that you would be talking about your organization and showing people that, yes, but we're going to be bold and we're going to make change, but you're creating a culture of opportunity where you say to folks that we're going to enable you and show you the path forward. And whether that's through career pathing, succession planning is where I spend a lot of my time right now with organizations, because building the critical bench and folks being brought on that journey, whether you're bringing in AI, thinking of remobilizing, there is this output that you will see in terms of engagement, ROI. We see the longevity of the employees go up in terms of how long they stay with your organization because you've invested in them. You know, this is kind of the stuff that you see that's really underneath the hood. And it's different slightly by percentage in each customer, but the storyline's all the same. Boldly reinvent your workforce, be really responsible in building your critical bench for succession planning, pivot your people into meaningful work, and that will pay you back because your workforce will be more productive, people will stay longer, your folks feel seen and heard, they have a more like value commitment to you as an organization, and you get that extra work thing that happens, you know, when people actually really do care and they're not just checking in. So I think this is why we're so obsessed with the both sides of that. And I think as well, like, ultimately, like all industries right now are going to be going through this, and it's really up to leaders like you to figure out, how do I help my CEO achieve the things that I know are being talked about at our board level, while also making sure that I look after my people. And this is what this is all about, right? The whole point of this data is really to focus on helping leaders like you think about, what is the opportunity for me to really help here, whether it's from task duplication, AI adoption, reinventing the workforce, and then right through to making sure that you have the right workforce enabled to see you through to this next new era of work as well.
Yeah, and when we talk about also the ROI, is that it depends on job by job, but and it's also impacted by the volume of change as well, right? But in every single one of these cases, you've seen a significant ROI. That means, if from a business, is this something that is worth me doing or not, right? And the answer is absolutely yes. But it's not only a minus, it's not only a subtraction gain, it's also an investment gain. One of the things, and if you know from a psychological safety perspective as well, and one of the dimensions and one of the that I use, and one of the data that I use, is the Edelman kind of index and trust index. Trust is really important for retention as well, Sophie. So a lot of the trust is being able to be transparent to, everybody knows that we are transforming ourselves, that we're changing as an organization. But the more transparent you are with the people that you have, the more trust you will gain, and therefore the more kind of sponsorship of the change you will have as well there. But it's a really, really good question. Everything that we're showing has a significant ROI as well for us. And there's everything that is really fun. It's been fantastic so far, Siobhan, and it's really good to have your perspectives as well. You could just on the previous slide there, if you want to book kind of a personalized skills masterclass for your organization, that we also do this. We are doing this as an industry. But if you want to say, okay, yes, by industry, but I would love to know more, what does this mean for us? Then reach out. You have the QR code there. We are more than happy to kind of jump on a conversation, understanding who you are, what are you trying to do, and depending on your state of evolution, what could be the opportunities that you will have in the future as well, giving you data for better decision making moving forward. So just ping us, use the QR code, and more than happy to jump in a conversation moving forward.
I'll try and jump in too if I get time.
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. This is an exclusive. I don't know. Maybe. So we'll have, looking ahead, our next masterclass will be in April 3rd at 11 a.m. Hoping that everybody from different time zones could eventually join us as well. We'll bring back Mike if Siobhan doesn't push him out,
I'm on holidays.
Wants to talk about But we'll be talking about a very cool and an industry that is dear to my heart, with these kind of consumer goods as well. So if you found this interesting, if you want to know more, if you want to chat more, if you want to have, if you have more questions of this industry, come and join us April 3rd at 11 a.m. But for now, thank you. Big thank you, Siobhan, for finding the time. I know how busy it is, but I also know that by the time that I say, listen, it's construction industry, you'll say, I'm going to be there.
Passion.
I love that.
Passion.
It is.
Force of nature of passion. But yeah, thank you. And if anyone is listening to this right now, there's just this incredible opportunity for us to do this differently. So don't waste the moment. That's the only thing I would say. Let's go. Thank you, Nuno. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.